We'll take a look at the best of the West. You have the Blazers, winners of 2 straight. The Clippers have won back-to-back games. But it's OKC who has blown back-to-back 16-point second-half leads as they've dropped 2 in a row. And the Spurs coming off of a rough home loss against the Knicks. You hear the music. We're talking Western Conference. You know it's time for our Western Conference Roundup. And we are joined by Scott Howard Cooper from NBA.com. Scott, thanks so much for joining us on this Saturday.
It's great to be with you.
Scott, it is great to hear from you. We know you have a vast amount of knowledge in that brain of yours. What is happening in the Western Conference? Our top story tonight has to be about the Clippers. And despite putting together those back-to-back wins, the fear now of not playing with Chris Paul for an extended amount of time. Do you think L.A. starts to look elsewhere for help outside of the organization?
Well, I think they've been looking for help for quite some time. As a matter of fact, I know that they have. This is not a new development. This is something that's been going on for quite some time, for many weeks, that they've been looking for an extra body, possibly a big, but they did not rule out the possibility of looking for another guard even before this. But as far as it relates directly to the Chris Paul injury, no, I don't think this changes anything. You're not going to see a panic purchase. This is a guy right now, we expect him to miss about 3 to 5 weeks. That's not the kind of injury that makes you shake up your entire team. If it turns out it's something much more than that, then we may be having a different conversation. But right now it's early enough in the season, and the injury is relatively minor. So, no, I don't think that you're going to be seeing any reaction to the Chris Paul injury for making a trade.
Scott, interesting happenings this week in Denver with Andre Miller suspended, then not suspended after a spat on the bench with head coach Brian Shaw, and now Miller is not with the team. Is Miller somebody as a veteran presence like they had last year in Chauncey Billups, somebody that Doc Rivers and the Clippers might want to look at potentially acquiring?
Well, at the right price. I think that Andre Miller would have a value to a lot of teams. You remember last year in the playoffs, he came up big for the Nuggets, really stepped up and had some key moments for George Karl's team. But I think they feel like they're not going to make any big, bold moves. So if they have to give up a lot, no, I don't think that they're going to go in that direction. They have some comfort in the fact that they have Darren Collison already on the roster. He's a veteran. They feel like he's a guy that can step in and play well. That's the good news. The bad news is he's not Chris Paul. So it's just going to be a tough time for a little while, but they do have Darren Collison there. They're not going to make a big move to bring in a temporary starter now or to bring in a third point guard, somebody to play behind Darren Collison.
Well, nobody is crying for the Clippers, especially not the Golden State Warriors, who are now the hottest team in the league with 8 straight wins. There was a lot of questions a couple of weeks ago, Scott, as to whether this team was built to win and whether they should have disrupted the chemistry they had last year. Do you think all these ails have been cured now with this 8-game winning streak, and people in the Oakland area are pretty satisfied with what they have?
Well, I don't think all the ails have been cured. The turnovers are still a problem. The bench is still a problem that needs to get much better before the playoffs if the Warriors are to make a real long run. But certainly things are going in a much better direction. This is a team that had trouble beating the elite teams of the league, and now lately they've done much better in that. We saw the other night a huge win down in Miami. That was the latest, but they also had some other nice wins during this 8-game winning streak. Some struggles. Remember, they had to go to overtime to beat Cleveland, and it took a huge comeback to win the other night. But there's no question that in the last few weeks this team is heading in a much better direction.
Huge question in the offseason about the backup point guard role. They lose Jarrett Jack after having a phenomenal year serving behind Steph Curry. And this summer, the Warriors tried to sell all of us that Tony Douglas was going to be the answer because of his defensive prowess on the perimeter. And really, the backup point guard, when healthy, has been Andre Iguodala. Do they need to address that moving forward?
Well, yeah, I think certainly getting another guard in there is one of the things that they do have to look at. We all knew going into the season that the bench was going to be a big concern because 3 people that had major roles last season are not able to play right now. Carl Landry left as a free agent. Jarrett Jack left. And Festus Ezeli, we can't forget about him, had a big role last year at center. He's hurt. He's working his way back from a knee injury, but there's no timetable on exactly when he plays again. Those are 3 key guys from the bench that are not there anymore. They got Maurice Spates. He has not played well. This is not what the Warriors expected from him at all. He was supposed to fill that big man role for Carl Landry and for Ezeli, and that hasn't happened. And you're right. Tony Douglas has had his struggles as well. It wouldn't be that big a deal, except that then Iguodala was hurt for a little while. And so that was another player that they thought was going to be able to play behind Steph Curry. That hasn't happened. There's no question the bench needs to shore itself up. It needs to be a lot more consistent if the Warriors are really to make a run in the postseason.
Well, the New Orleans Pelicans had their eyes on the postseason this year, and their big offseason acquisition was Tyreke Evans. Suffered through 3 different ankle injuries. Now that he's back, he's finally got it going with 8 consecutive double-figure scoring games. Is he somebody you think we might be able to put in that conversation for 6th man of the year come end of the season?
I think so. Certainly if he plays at this level, there's no question. It's an interesting spot for him, and quite possibly a perfect spot, because if you remember, the problem when he was in Sacramento was that he didn't really have a position. He played some point guard, he played some shooting guard, he played some small forward. And so there's this sense of where does he play? And the Pelicans came up with a great solution of let him play everywhere, and they plug him in at different times where they need him. There's been the injury issues, and they've been bringing in Jrue Holiday as well, so there's been some transition there. But there's no question that Tyreke is a guy that can make an impact. He certainly can be in the conversation for 6th man of the year. And what we've seen since he's come back from this latest injury is exactly why. He scores, he rebounds, he can still deliver the ball even though he's not a true point guard. And this is a guy that a lot of people feel, because of his athleticism and his size, can still be a very good defender.
And we'll see how they deal without Ryan Anderson for however long he misses some time. Scott Howard Cooper, the Western Conference Roundup. I apologize, I forgot my hat tonight.
Give me a giddy up.
Giddy up! Yeehaw! All right, Scotty. I can't do it as good as Vince Cellini. Sorry, guys. That's his thing. Scott Howard Cooper, NBA.com. Thanks as always.
Thank you.